Hello, I'm Andrew Mellor. Thank you for joining us. With me today is Min Zeng, the Portfolio Manager of the Fidelity Japan Equities Fund. Hello, Min.
Good morning.
Let's start, please, with a little bit of information about yourself.
Okay.
How long have you been at Fidelity and how did you get into investing in the first place?
Okay. I've been at Fidelity for 13 years, majority of that as an analyst. I've been running funds for about 4 or 5 years now. How I got into investing, my first investment was in 2009. I used my textbook money in university, $900, I think that was worth about 2 textbooks, to invest in General Motors when it was close to $1 per share. I thought there's no way the US would let General Motors go bust. I mini mode between GM and Ford without really thinking too much, and GM eventually went bust. So my initial life investment turned to zero. That's when I really realized, investing, even if you think it's a good idea, looking into the financials, the balance sheets, cash flow, that can be very critical in terms of making or breaking your investments.
A good lesson, perhaps.
Yes, it was.
And on to the product, Fidelity Japan Equities Fund. Tell us a little bit about that product, how it's structured, what it's designed to provide for investors.
Okay. So the Japan Equities Fund, it's comprised out of about 50 to 80 stocks. The style, it's somewhat balanced. It has a value tilt, but it's somewhat balanced between value and growth. It is designed to provide the best ideas that's coming out of our Japan research team. We have a 12-member team. I visit individual companies together with our analysts. We do deep dive analysis on the earnings, valuations, and I pick the best stocks that I think are coming from our team to invest through Japan's growth and governance reform cycle.
Excellent. And in terms of the investment process, maybe just tell us a little bit about portfolio construction and position sizing as well, please.
Sure. So, of course, the idea generation can come from anywhere. Our local analysts, our global analysts from London to our Asian offices, they're quite interconnected. So ideas can come from the broader team as well. We do that in-depth analysis with our analysts that I mentioned. Japan team covers about 300 stocks in total, actively covering. So there's quite a bit of a pool to choose from. From those 300, I mentioned the fund invests between 50 to 80. Tracking error of the fund is generally 3 to 6. Active money is 60 to 80%. I do take into consideration risks, for example, on an individual stock basis. A really good idea from an analyst, what does it provide to the fund? A stock that is going out, what is it detracting from the fund if I take it out? And then I do look at the overall balance of the fund. What type of macro exposures is it effectively exposed to? Is that the type of risk that I would like to take for the fund? That's how generally the portfolio is constructed.
Okay, let's maybe touch on risk a little bit. I guess Japan, like all markets, can be volatile at times. How do you think about risk and how do you manage risk in the portfolio?
Yeah, I think on that, there is that bottom-up level and top-down. The bottom-up is really looking at what effective bet this stock is making. One example is our chemicals analyst. He might have a very strong opinion on the upside of a specific chemical stock, but if you really think of it, it is actually linked to the semiconductor supply chain. So effectively, by putting this in, I am adding to the semiconductor bet of the fund. Is that something that I want? Those are some of the bottom-up considerations. Top-down, I mentioned I do look at some macro variable impacts to the fund. So for example, what is the fund's performance impact if the US 10-year yields rise, if the Japanese yen is strengthening? What are the fund's exposures to that? And is that the direction something that I would like? And is the magnitude something that the fund can withstand? That's the kind of daily process. Of course, quarterly, the important process is we have a global fund risk review that looks into the trades of the fund, the positioning, the ESG characteristics, explaining some of the names that might pop up as potential risks. And so I think the overall risk process is quite comprehensive from the daily level to a quarterly milestone basis.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And you touched on the Fidelity analyst team briefly
Yep.
earlier. Perhaps just talk about the importance of having an on-the-ground research team. Clearly Japan's a very broad market, multiple sectors, multiple industries. The importance of that team and of course the importance of local language analysts on the ground in Tokyo.
Sure. So Japan can be quite, there's a lot of undercovered stocks in Japan. Maybe not so much at the larger cap, but mid cap, small cap. Definitely that's the case in terms of lack of street coverage. That's an area where we tend to find a lot of great ideas. The importance of our analysts and their impact on the fund, I'll give you two examples. One is Hitachi, which has been a great stock over the past 5 years. The fund has owned it since 5 years ago. About 2 years ago, I decided to start trimming because the upside became a little bit more limited based on what I thought. Our analyst back then really convinced me to stick with it. He took the time to teach me on the energy business that is now greatly exposed to. Well, it made me stop selling. Since then, the stock has done another fantastic job. And so the analysts really influence whether a name, how much it goes in, how much it goes out. Those are very important inputs for myself. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Min, and thank you all for joining us.